One transfer quarterback was believed to be a Heisman contender. The other is actually leading the SEC in passing. John Mateer, Joey Aguilar, Tennessee, Oklahoma. All that and more to Thursday. Locked on Vols.
You are Locked on Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Good Thursday morning, everybody. Welcome into it. Locked on Vols. I am your host, Eric Cain. Appreciate you guys for being here, making Locked on Vols a part of your morning routine, your first listen, your first watch each and every single morning. We are a part of the Locked on Podcast Network, where it is your team every single day. Today's episode is brought to you in part by our friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook, where new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. You can download our friends, or you can download the app today and check out our friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook today, again, for being proud presenting sponsor of today's show. That is FanDuel Sportsbook. All right, so looking forward to getting into the action here today. Ward Wednesday. Josh Ward stops by. It's Thursday, but we're going to do it, Ward Wednesday on a Thursday just because we had a crossover earlier in the week and it kind of knocked some things out of order. But looking forward to catching up with Josh Ward, getting his thoughts on what's going on with Tennessee baseball, Tennessee football, Tennessee basketball as well. We'll talk some hoops in segment 3. VFL Chris Burke, ESPN college baseball analyst, one of the best players ever to do it, to run the Power T. He's going to speak on Josh Elander's hire, TONY VITELLO to the Giants. But before all that, we are going to look at Joey Aguilar versus John Mateer. And this is very, very interesting in my opinion because you have John Mateer, which I spoke all week long. I think he's a great player. I think before his injury, he was one of the best players in the country. I think they were running him too much, clearly. But, man, I thought he was well on his way. Then he got hurt with a thumb. He missed a couple of games, has come back, and has not played well at all, in my opinion. He's been a shell of himself, and he hadn't ran the football hardly at all. And speaking with people, and we heard Jay the other day, on the crossover, like, hey, the thumb's not the issue right now. It's his confidence. It's seeing the field. It's things that you work through in terms of being a starting quarterback in this league. And so, again, I still think there's got to be some contributing factors to the thumb. I mean, there just has to be, right? It's your thumb on your throwing hand, and he's not thrown the football very well, like since his return. That does not mean that he's going to be bad against Tennessee, leave it to Tennessee's defense to prop anybody up, right? So we'll see exactly what happens. But you have John Mateer, who was brought in from Washington State and got off to an incredible start. You have John Mateer, who was brought in, and everybody thought that was going to be a Heisman caliber, candidate. And maybe if not for the injury, maybe he would still be. But then you have Joey Aguilar, that was an afterthought. You have Joey Aguilar, that was Mr. Turnover Machine at a Sun Belt conference school. Mr. Aguilar, that was, and Spencer McLaughlin, I'll always reference this because I thought it was funny at the time, and I definitely think it's funny now. Go check out Locked on College Football today. He does a fantastic job. But he said in the Nico trade, did Tennessee get Aguilar and cash considerations, or Aguilar and a player to be named later? Because Tennessee didn't get the good end of that deal. Well, and I'm not trying to act like anybody called this, because if anybody called this, I want those lotto numbers, right? What an incredible season Joey Aguilar's had. It's pretty phenomenal, right? Nobody saw this coming. And so you have a guy in John Mateer that's brought in with all this praise and this hype and all this fanfare, and it's deservedly so. I think he's a good quarterback, and I hate the guy who got hurt because I think it really derailed his season, to where he is now, to where he's not a bad quarterback, but man, there's just certainly not what he could be, right? And you have Joey Aguilar that was just like, man, will he even win the starting job? Or how long will he have this starting job? Or certainly not leading the SEC in passing yards, certainly not leading the SEC in passer rating in SEC games and 20-plus yard passes, 30-plus yard passes, 40-plus yard passes, certainly not second in the SEC in touchdown throws. Nobody envisioned this. So I think it's just kind of funny, man. You look at John Mateer, look at Joey Aguilar, 2 transfer quarterbacks into the new respective teams, and 2 different seasons based off expectations so far. Kind of interesting. I'm excited to watch those 2 do battle on Saturday night. We talked about John Mateer a lot earlier in the week. We talked about him with Jay, and we'll talk about it with Boogie coming up. His stats have not been good lately. Since post-injury, his stats have not been good. As Jay pointed out, I think part of it might be a confidence issue, not seeing the field well right now. But you want to compare the Pro Football Focus stats a little bit. Passes 20 yards or more down the field. I mean, every time I look at Joey Aguilar's stats, and again, you go 7 for 7 in that category last week against Kentucky, it's going to boost those stats up. And they were already good to begin with. I mean, the fact that Joey Aguilar's numbers on passes 20-plus yards down the field is phenomenal. He's 21 of 37. 21 of 37, completing 56% of his passes. 834 yards, averaging 22 yards per attempt. 11 touchdowns and 1 interceptions. 11 touchdowns and 1 interception. Phenomenal work. I mean, that's just 14% of his dropbacks. I hear you. But he's 21 of 37, 834 yards, 11 touchdowns, 1 pick. Sensational numbers right there. You compare those numbers to John Mateer, passes 20 yards or more down the field. 11 for 33, 33%, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 343 yards. Again, the longer the throws, the lower the completion percentage, because they are tougher throws to connect on. They're tougher throws to make. So the completion percentage is going to be down. So the fact that Joey Aguilar is throwing over 50%, completing over 50% of those passes, and dang near 60%, it's remarkable. So Mateer clearly at a disadvantage in passes down the field. You look at medium passes, intermediate passes, 10 yards to 19 yards. Mateer is 30 for 50, completing 60%, 600 yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. That is his wheelhouse. That is his wheelhouse for sure. Look at Joey Aguilar. Numbers are still pretty good, right? 37 of 61, completing 60% of his passes, 577 yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception. So the intermediate passing game has been good for both quarterbacks. Look at the short game. Below 10 yards, 9 yards or less. Neither quarterback's done very particularly well in this regard. 75 of 101 from Mateer, completing 74% of his passes. Okay, 602 yards, no touchdowns, 2 picks. Look at Joey Aguilar. 70 for 100, 70%, so that's about the same. 651, about the same. 1 touchdown, 4 picks. Both quarterbacks have struggled at times turning the football over at or near the line of scrimmage. So I think that's something to pay attention to for sure. So, yeah, man, I'm excited to see this battle. Again, 2 quarterbacks that came to college with 2 different height meters. It was through the roof for John Mateer, as it should have been. There was no fanfare, with the exception of, boy, what a train wreck offensively Tennessee's going to be this year for Joey Aguilar. And here we are. Aguilar is one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC, one of the best quarterbacks in the country. And John Mateer, due to an unfortunate injury, in my opinion, it's not been good enough here lately. But he started the year off exceptionally well. So hopefully Tennessee defense can kind of continue these trends. Obviously, I think the storyline in this one is Tennessee's offense against the number one offense in the SEC, number one defense in the SEC, Tennessee offense, Oklahoma defense. That's obviously a storyline. What does Brent Venables do to kind of cloud the coverage behind the linebackers? What's his game plan up front to get after a Tennessee offensive line that's given up 5 sacks in the last 2 games? 4 of those Alabama, okay? What is Tennessee's counter to trying to run the football and try not to be one-dimensional? Oklahoma offense that's been very frustrating this year. Tennessee's defense has been very frustrating this year. What do you do at an elite level? Oklahoma doesn't do anything at an elite level. Tennessee at least gets takeaways at an elite level, scores off those takeaways at an elite level, used to get sacks at an elite level. I still think Tennessee's defense does more well than Oklahoma's offense does. But again, we will we'll have to see. It's gonna be a whole lot of fun. Looking forward to covering it all right here on Locked On Vols. We will continue the conversation, but next, what does Chris Burke, VFL, have to say about the coaching search, about Tony Vitello leaving for the Giants, and how Danny White was quick and smart to end up with Josh Elander as the program's next head coach? The VFL, the All-American, the former big leaguer, Chris Burke, going to join Locked On Vols when we return right here on Locked On Vols. Stay tuned. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on all the action over at FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps everything inside the game even more exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. All you need to do, head on over to FanDuel.com to sign up, get started today, start winning with FanDuel. It's the official sports betting partner of the NBA, and it's where you can make every moment more. Hey, want to welcome on to the show a great friend of the Tennessee baseball program, one of the better players in program history, current ESPN college baseball analyst, and VFL Chris Burke. Chris, thanks so much for joining the show, man. It's been a crazy last 10 days or so for Tennessee baseball with Tony going to the Giants and then promoting Josh Elander. Kind of what's your overall thoughts on where the Tennessee baseball program's been?
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind. I think I started off with, like, is this real? And then obviously it was very real. And then I was kind of bummed. I had just an initial reaction of like, wait, that was a lot of fun and it's over. And honestly, part of that emotion comes from me as the Tennessee alumni. And part of that's me as the Tennessee or college baseball analyst, because Tony's just fun for the sport. I mean, he just is. His teams are fun. He's a blast. People tune in to watch him and his teams. And so then I kind of put my analyst hat on and really felt passionately that Josh was the right guy for the job, and, tried to share my thoughts where they were welcomed, and really pleased that Danny and his committee came up with the same result that a lot of us in the industry thought made the most sense. Because I do think probably the most undersold piece. It's funny, like Tony obviously gets all the credit he has deserved. But after Tony, typically the credit goes to Frank, because Frank handles the pitchers. And Frank deserves an immense amount of credit, because not only is Tennessee's pitching staff so excellent every year, they do it in a very offensive ballpark. And all the draft picks and all the all-SEC performers and all those kinds of things. But I just don't think Josh got his due over the 8 years, just because Tony's shadow casts such a big image of, at the very least, co-head recruiter. I mean, Tony obviously was very involved in the recruiting, but Josh was lockstep with him in that. And then ran the offense, didn't just coach the hitters. He ran the offense that it was is the nation's best 5 years running. So I feel like the search and the search committee had to wrap their brain around just how much credit Josh deserves for the run that this program's been on over the last 8 years.
So from your perspective, and knowing Josh Elander and being around Tennessee baseball, both as a VFL and, of course, a college baseball analyst, what is Josh going to bring to the table that will allow him to be successful as a head coach? I mean, he's not Tony Vitello. What's Josh's style going to be here in Knoxville? Or, we might not know the answer to that right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some question marks. I don't think the product on the field is going to look a whole lot different. Mike Rooney and I were talking about this on our podcast the other day. Like, I do think one of the more truer statements in sports are that teams take on the persona of their head coach. I think that's true. And I think specifically of great head coaches. And Josh and Tony do have very different personalities, but I think they see the game between the lines and the type of players that win. And I think they believe in the same things about allowing those players, developing those players, but then giving those players the freedom to express themselves and to play with a brash arrogance that borders, he even said in his press conference, that borders on reckless at times. So I just don't think what you see on the field will change a ton. They might have a little more understated tone to them than they've had under the Tony regime. But I don't think that the Tennessee baseball program will take on a drastically new direction.
One of my questions, and you've already pointed out right there, and this is pretty well known. I mean, Elander, is very much involved in recruiting. He's a recruiting coordinator, but you had that ace in the hole of Tony Vitello. Now you don't. I'm intrigued to see what Josh and his staff look like in the transfer portal this summer. Continuing to build, the 26 and 27 classes are loaded right now, but finishing off those classes on into 28. Not a concern, but I think that's another question mark, right? Like, how does Elander and his staff kind of pick up where Tony was so effective in recruiting?
I think that's really fair. I think I'm not as concerned about the high school piece of it as the portal piece.
Yeah.
And concern's not the right word. It's just interested. We'll see how it goes. I will say, financially speaking, I am going to be interested because, call it whatever you want to call it. They're paying Tony $2 million, or they're paying Josh $2 million less than they pay Tony. So where does that money go?
Yep.
Is that a feather in Josh Elander's cap for the portal? Because we know that matters a lot. And as much as Tony's personality matters, as much as star players were drawn to play for him, we all know that there is a business component to these portal decisions. That's just true. That's just real. And I would think that Danny is very motivated to continue and to continue to support Josh's efforts with NIL and revenue sharing. And who knows, maybe with the fact that he's making a couple million, that's no small number in a baseball budget. The fact that he's making a couple $1 million less than Tony, that might give them in a weird way some sort of an advantage. But we'll see. But I think it's a fair question to ask, for sure.
When you look at just all the support that Josh Elander got, from you, like you said, you voiced your opinion when it was wanted, tons of social media reaction from former players. I mean, if you're Danny White, you obviously can't make a hire just off like the reaction from the outside, but man, it was almost like everything was unison, and it was not orchestrated. I mean, it was genuine. I mean, as a former player, like that's pretty unique to see everybody in the same direction, it feels like.
Yeah, from different generations, right?
Yeah.
There wasn't typically, and again, this was a very unique set of circumstances. So the fact that the search was unique kind of fits the process. But rarely do you get somebody that is so universally respected and held in such a high regard as you do here with Josh Elander. I will tell you, Eric, it wasn't just guys like me that were guys that never played for him, or the guys that did play for him. It was everybody that covers the sport. Like Kendall Rogers, Aaron Fitt, Kyle Peterson, Mike Rooney. If you cover the sport, Joe Healy, if you cover the sport, you thought Josh Elander was the best guy for the job. In addition to that, as you can imagine, I spoke to a lot of coaches and a lot of people around it that were very interested in that job. And every one of them was like, they should give it to Josh. But
yeah,
if they go in a different direction, would you keep me in mind? Would you put my name in the hat? That kind of thing. And nobody called like, hey, Burke, you know they need to go in a new direction if they're going to keep this thing going. Like, nobody said that. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So I just think that tells you all you need to know about Josh.
I got two more questions, and then we'll get you out of here. You brought up the process and the unique timing of it all. I mean, this is not coaching carousel season. This is not May or June. This is the end of October. Everybody's towards the end of fall ball, kind of getting ready for the new semester and the season ahead. How realistic Tennessee obviously didn't go in this direction, but from a national perspective, the coaching search took 3 days. I mean, I know that they vetted around and they sought the interest of some coaches around the country, lined up an interview with another. But the timing of it all, this would have been very different, wouldn't you say, if this was May or June compared to the end of October?
Potentially. I mean, there's also a bunch of other circumstances in May or June that would have shaped how the search would have gone, right? So, hypothetically, if they would have just named Josh the interim and they had just had a great, and Danny said, I'm committed to doing a search after the season, but Josh and the team killed it, then who knows? He probably would have called that off midway, right? If what you're asking is Tony would have taken another college job and there would have been an opening at the end of last season, would the search have looked different? Yes, I think it would have. I think I will say, though, that it's interesting. We're seeing this right now in college football. We've seen some new things going on in college basketball. And athletic directors have a lot more to consider these days with the timing of hiring and firings.
Yeah.
And so it's really hard to fully answer that question because it feels like almost every season of the college calendar, there's some deadline that you have to be aware of because player movement is so easy, right? And then just in general, you get a 30-day window every time a coaching change is made. So I think there's, I heard somebody talking about yesterday, what would such and such athletic director have done in this situation? You're like, well, you can't answer that question because such and such athletic director wasn't an AD in this era.
Yep.
And we are in unprecedented times, and sometimes that sounds hyperbolic, but that's just actually true. We are in an era, the last 3 or 4 years, that you can't hearken back to some great AD from the 80s or 90s and ask what they would have done. That they don't know what they couldn't answer that question, right? Because they're not in this modern era every day. So this was even unique relative to the very unique time frame that we find ourselves in. And I think just in general, these things are probably more time sensitive than ever because you are so worried about player movement.
Always something going on, that's for sure. Hey, Chris, out the door, man, I want to get your thoughts. You referenced Tony earlier, but how do you think he's going to fare in Major League Baseball? I think that obviously he's making history. This thing has never been done. I think everybody's so pumped to see what the Giants are going to look like this year, but how Tony adjusts and how he adapts. What are your thoughts on Tony, the manager of a Major League Baseball program?
It's such a great question. The first thing I want to say is I'll let you know in February 15th when I see what his roster looks like, because it will be interesting though, just to watch this thing unfold and see what Buster Posey is able to do with the roster with Tony as potentially a selling point. I've said this on a few different outlets. I think maybe part of the reason Buster Posey wanted to take the chance on Tony Vitello is the Giants have continuously lost out on big money free agents over the last 5-6 years when they've made it very known that they have money to spend, yet people aren't choosing the Giants. Is Tony Vitello, we talked about how good he was in the portal, is Tony Vitello the kind of manager that can talk big-time free agents into playing in San Francisco? I think that'll be interesting. I'm certain Tony took the job with the thought process of I'd like some input into how we construct our roster and what kind of things that I think win and how much so, who knows, but I would be shocked if he walked away from what he had in Knoxville to have no control over who's on his roster. But it'll be fascinating. One thing with Tony, it will be interesting. I think the players are going to absolutely love him. That doesn't mean he might not have to learn some things. I'm sure he does, but I think the players are going to absolutely love him. I think the hard part for Tony will be that, you're Major League Baseball, maybe more so than any other professional sport. You are truly capped by what's your roster and how well do they play. And you can't really out-coach, out-motivate, or out-inspire that. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting. One kind of interesting positive result that I really think is fun for the whole Tennessee community is I think because Josh is the new head coach and because it feels so connected to Tony, I think it frees up Tennessee people to really root for the Giants. Probably the Giants will probably have a big following now in Tennessee. And I think it also, the flip side of that is I think what we all feel good about is Tony is going to feel completely welcome, and I would be shocked if he's not a comfortable and consistent presence. And I've even fast forwarded in my mind. Can't you just see Tony taking so many opportunities to pub Tennessee when he gets big, you see what I'm saying? I think these are some of the unintended maybe consequences that are going to help by the fact that Tony is so motivated to help Josh that I do think he'll use whatever influence he has or platform he gets to continue to push the University of Tennessee, and everybody wins with that.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I could certainly see that, and it would. I know we'll be busy, but it would shock me if Tony Vitello is not sitting courtside at a basketball game at some point this winter. Before things get going busy for him. So, great stuff, Chris. Thanks so much for joining us. Great insight, and always appreciate your coverage, man.
You got it. Thanks.
Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else as of August of this past year. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings the same intention to how we craft every model. You can feel the Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to the available Napa leathery upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, where you can move and you can be moved. Josh Ward joining us for Ward Thursday. It just doesn't sound quite the same. A day later normally than we do each and every week. He's the host of Josh and Swain on 99.1 The Sports Animal with VFL Jason Swain. A lot going on right now. Never a dull moment on the campus of the University of Tennessee. Let's start with football. Man, Kentucky, like a lot of good, a whole lot of bad. A lot of good offensively, a couple things good defensively, mostly bad defensively. It's just kind of like rinse repeat, man. It's unfortunately this is just kind of your team right now. You're going to have to score a whole lot of points.
Yeah, at this point, that feels like what Tennessee's team is. Now, maybe we get a game where the script can be flipped a little bit. Heck, at Mississippi State, that was a game where the defense did give up a lot of yards and some points in that game, but they scored twice and needed to because the offense in regulation only scored 20. So we did see that game. That's also against Mississippi State. Now the stakes are higher. We're entering November. The opponents are going to be solid the rest of the way in SEC play. And I think that's what a lot of the conversation is, man, the defense, the issues that have been there, if they keep going, that's a lot of pressure on the offense to kind of carry the load through this month of November and trying to get to the college football playoff. But we talk about tackling issues. We talk about some of the issues they've had in the secondary and how are they fixable, and expecting them to be fixed at this point when they also have some personnel questions and they have some injuries they're dealing with. It's just a big ask. So I think the fair expectation is that the offense is going to have to continue to light it up and hope that the defense can make a few plays to make up for some of the issues they have as well.
Looking at Oklahoma, really, really sound defense. Ole Miss put up some points and yards against them, so that's encouraging. That was just last week, but really, really good defense. You have an offense that, prior to the injury of John Mateer, I thought looked pretty good. Now, they didn't have a traditional run game, but I don't think Mateer's played very well since coming back. Now, he hasn't played a Tennessee defense, so we'll see what happens. Overall thoughts, a couple days out, Tennessee, Oklahoma, in what is a huge, huge football game at Neyland Stadium.
Yeah, how did the two teams do protecting their quarterbacks? That's a key in any kind of football game. Can you protect the quarterback? But Tennessee and Oklahoma both have defensive fronts that can pressure the quarterback. Both teams have quarterbacks that can make mistakes if they're pressured, and they can give the ball up and take some risk, and the opposing defense can make plays off of that. So can Tennessee protect Aguilar? If that happens, that can create more opportunities down the field. I continue to harp on it, but the Kentucky game showed again, when they're able to hit the ball down the field, the offense can be as good as any in the country. When they don't, then they can run into problems, because if they're trying to sustain drives, then a lot of times Tennessee's offense can get in its own way. So against this defensive front that Oklahoma has, protecting Joey is critical. And then Mateer on the road in front of what I expect to be a hostile crowd. If Tennessee's defense is able to pressure him, then they could make some of those plays we're talking about. And even if they allow Oklahoma to move the ball and put up some points, the defense could get its sixth touchdown of the season. And leading the way in the nation, that is a positive of what this defense can do. So both teams, I think, have similar goals. And then Oklahoma has not been a great running offense, but I think they're going to try to attack and see if they can get out on the edge and find some space and make some plays that way and get going against Tennessee's defense. So I'm sure that while OU's offense has not been overly impressive this season, their offense coordinator, Arbuckle, is looking at ways that with his playmakers, he has some, they can make plays against Tennessee's defense.
Yeah, is 7 for 7 passes 20 yards or more down the field, is that good?
It's really good. Yeah, it's really good, and it made Kentucky look really bad. And the fact that they held Arch Manning to what they did the week before, I think he was 12 of 27, and Texas couldn't put points on the board. It shows that, hey, yeah, Texas has talent, and we've been waiting for too much for them to put it together. Tennessee's actually put it together at different times this season. What they did against Georgia and what they did on Saturday, they've had some problems in between, but this offense still has huge potential every time they go out there if they can hit those deep balls to Chris Brazzell, to Mike Matthews, and Braylon Staley has just really been good. He had a tough game against Mississippi State, made a big play for them late in that game. Over the course of the season, Staley has been terrific, I think, for Tennessee's offense.
I know this is not an easy answer, because if it was, maybe you'd be on staff for Tennessee, because it feels like there just is no answer right now. Again, I continue rinse and repeat, say the same things every week. Tennessee, for the most part this year, rushes the quarterback well. That's been in a bit of a slump lately. They need to fix that for sure. Creating takeaways and capitalizing off those takeaways. That's what Tennessee does at an elite level defensively. Everything else is poor. So what do you do, Josh? What do you do to fix third and long? What do you do to limit the number of passing yards over the middle of the field? Felt like Tim Banks and Willie Martinez, rotated a ton at safety last week. They played 4 guys, about even snaps almost. What do you do defensively to try to slow down opposing offense? You don't have to be great. Just make a couple of stops, and that should be enough.
Well, I would wave some magic wands to get JERMOD McCoy and RICKEY GIBSON out there, and to get Jacoby Thomas back from Miami, because I think they have the physical traits, the mindset as well. The way that Thomas played the game, I think, is something that's lacking in this Tennessee defense. I'm kidding, of course, and it's not to make an excuse of what's going on. They would be different with those guys out there. That's the case for everybody, but they're not out there. And there are more problems than just that. Tennessee hasn't been physical enough in the secondary. The long play that Boo Carter gave up, not physical enough at the line of scrimmage, and didn't give enough effort all the way to the end zone. That's one play. That's an example. I think fans want to know about, well, what about the scheme? At times I think we can point back to last year. Well, scheme was good last year, but remember the 3rd and 2 play against Alabama, I think coming out of a timeout, that's on the 99-yard drive where Tennessee drops everybody and they did a quick dump off to the tight end. I don't know what Tennessee's doing on that play.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure anybody else does outside of Tennessee's box up there. So we can point to different plays given up, issues on the edge, guys not holding contained against quarterbacks. So different drives, different plays given up. We can point to different problems would be my guess. But the problem there is that, Eric, you add all of that up, and it's resulted in a lot of frustration with Tennessee's defense this season.
Let's shift gears. Let's go to the hardwood exhibition play. Tennessee comes up short against Duke, 83-76 on Sunday night. But, man, I love these type of matchups. Tennessee-Michigan State, Tennessee-Indiana, Tennessee-Ohio State. Just a couple of in recent memory, last couple of years. Cameron Boozer's a stud. Go figure, right? Who would have thought? His brother's going to be pretty good as well. We all know who their father is. But when you look at Tennessee's side, not the best shooting performance for Jacoby Gillespie or Nate Ament, but man, showed flashes. I think Tennessee's going to be just okay. I think those two guys are going to be a whole lot of fun to watch this year.
Yeah, they will be. And there will be some games where I think Gillespie and Nate Ament together wow everybody. And they put up massive numbers with the volume of opportunities they'll get. Obviously, Gillespie running the offense, and Ament's just going to get his shots a lot of the time. There will also be some frustrating performances where they probably don't shoot well from the outside. We saw that the other day against Duke, and there will be more performances like that. That is my biggest question going in, has been during the summer, and it applies to most teams. Can Tennessee get consistent outside shooting? And I don't know what the answer is going to be there. We'll find out as the season goes along. I am very intrigued by the front court, the depth of big bodies that they have, and how that's going to play out. I think Dwayne Brown is a guy that has created some attention that didn't exist during a lot of the offseason. So how they manage the minutes of the big guys, because they have a lot more to work with this year than Tennessee has had in the last few seasons, that is intriguing to me. But Gillespie is going to drive a lot of what happens for Tennessee this season. Can they shoot well from the outside? That'll be a question along the way. But Tennessee's going to play physical on the defensive end. I think they're going to be really good, and they'll be in the hunt late in the season, I think, for an SEC title and a chance to make a deep run in the NCAA tournament.
That phrase right there leads me into our last topic before we say goodbye. You said in the hunt. Well, let's go on the hunt. That's what Josh Elander's done for years. It's kind of been his mantra, sparking a a little something between him and the Tennessee baseball teams over the last years. The way this Tony Vitello situation ended up, it was Vitello going to San Francisco. He'll be introduced today, I believe, and a national coaching search that lasted 3 days. And Danny White hired associate head coach Josh Elander to take over. I'm an Elander guy. I think he's earned it. I think he's going to be. I think there's no better person for this job right now than Josh Elander. Thought he did a really good job at his introductory press conference back on Monday. Your thoughts on where Tennessee baseball is right now with the new era in Elander?
I think Tennessee's still in a good position. I'm surprised Josh Elander is still at Tennessee. I thought he would be hired away over the last couple of years. But fortunately for Tennessee, with Tony Vitello making the unexpected move to the San Francisco Giants, meaning who expected that a college baseball coach would end up a major league manager? Well, that's the position Tennessee was in. Fortunately for Tennessee, a guy like Elander is on staff, and the support that he received had to be overwhelming. I don't know when we've seen that, where it was close to unanimous, or maybe it was within the building and even outside the building among fans and people that support UT baseball and people that follow the sport, that said Elander is the guy. He's the guy that has to step in. He can keep what's been going on moving forward. That in terms of the culture, what they've built with the mindset around Tennessee baseball, recruiting, it was remarkable to see how much everybody supported Elander. And there was, I think, unnecessary drama that surrounded what was going to happen with Tony Vitello, his departure right after, and then a few days leading up to Elander being hired. But I think it's the right move by Danny White. It's a low-risk hire by Danny, and it's one that can pay off big time if things do continue close to how they have. And they should be good right away. I mean, the expectations are to go compete for national championship, compete at the top of the SEC this season. That's the expectation internally and externally, and it's realistic. So it can work out where Tennessee fans can pull for Tony Vitello to succeed in the majors and Josh Elander to continue the success that Tennessee baseball has enjoyed since he arrived with Tony.
Really fun show today. Can't thank Josh Ward enough for altering his schedule a little bit, coming on the show here on a Thursday. Can't thank Chris Burke enough for stopping by the show and talking Tennessee baseball. What an exciting time to see Tony Vitello introduced in San Francisco later today. Josh Elander taking over the program. Going to be a whole lot of fun in that regard, and it was a lot of fun comparing the two quarterbacks, specifically deep shots down the field, Joey Aguilar and John Mateer. It's actually, where Joe Milton and Nico just couldn't connect on deep passes for the most part, and you're getting like 2 years of frustrations built up, just getting released here this year on those 20-yard passes or more down the field with Joey Aguilar. It's been fun. It was cool to look at those stats and compare those to that of Oklahoma's starting quarterback, John Mateer. Got a fun show coming up tomorrow. Keys to the game, picks, all that and more. Boogie Bentley of the Talking Vols Network going to join us to get us set for the weekend. Our unofficial tailgate begins Friday morning right here on Locked On Vols. Appreciate you guys for being here. This is Locked On Vols.